This video is brought to you by YTAndrewPaul Tech Repairs. If you have a console, laptop, computer or Macbook in need of repair in the UK or the EU, then have a look in the description below this video for details on how to contact us in order to organise your repair. Right, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. And today we are going to take a look at a little utility which I've come to use over the past couple of weeks, and I actually really quite like it. And if it's something that you use a lot, in as much as you see quite a few PS4 with firmware corruption controller sync issues, then it's one that you may very well be aware of. But if not, then I've come today to sort of shed a little bit of light on it for you, and just to show you it in action and how it works. And that little thing, in case you haven't read the video title already, is something called YTAndrewPaul Launchers. And YTAndrewPaul Launchers is a little utility that's been around for a little while. We're currently on version 2.05 at the moment, as far as I'm aware. And essentially what it does is it's a GUI plugin to SPIWay. So, whereas normally, of course, those of you who follow my other videos may have seen, we have a tutorial from complete beginning to end of how to correct a firmware controller sync issue. So that's a controller sync issue which isn't caused by a faulty defective module on the PS4 mainboard, instead is caused by a corruption in the Bluetooth stack in ROM. And what we do is we use this little piece of software called SPIWay, which is a fantastic little command line utility written by judges. Top props to that guy for his work. It's absolutely fantastic. Without that, we would be stuffed completely. So big props to judges for the original software. Essentially, what we do is, if you haven't seen it, I've put a link in the description to the first couple of parts of the tutorial series. So it's a 3-part series. Part 1 deals with the hardware you're going to need and how to build it. Part 2 deals with how to set the hardware up, so you're ready to do some repairing, and part 3 goes through the entire repair process as to what you'll need to do to actually correct your particular issue. So from this particular point on, we are going to be dealing from the end of step 2. So watch the first part, watch the second part, and then pick up from here if you want to sort of understand completely what's going on. But we'll touch on bits as we go, but like I said, for a complete understanding I'd advise you go and watch at least those first 2 parts. And those are linked in the description. So essentially what we'd normally do, of course, is once we have our hardware built, programmed, installed, we've removed our NOR flash from our PS4 and it's time to dump. We'd normally, if you follow on from the part 2 of our tutorial series, you'll see we create this little shortcut called SPIWay, and we issue a command to SPIWay initially, which basically gives us some information on our chip, which basically tells us whether our chip is seated correctly in the socket and if everything is working as it should be. And in my case, wouldn't you know it, I don't think it's seated properly. Now then, I did test this before I started recording this video and it was working absolutely fine. There we go. You see what I mean? What do they say? Never work with children and animals or technology seemingly on camera. And I think it's buggering about with me today, is this thing, because if I sit and hold it, it's going to make me out to be a liar now, isn't it? Yep, it is. I may cut this and come back if it's still misbehaving. See if we can get it to behave. There we go. Are you going to behave now? Are you going to behave now? Right, yes we are. Okay. So, yes. So let's try that again, now that everything's behaving itself. So normally we'd run SPIWay, and we'd issue a command to the SPIWay, Python script of course, to COM port 3, because essentially the hardware interface that we build is essentially a serial to USB device, which, you know, we go through this in complete detail in part 2. Essentially that device that we've built is sitting on COM port 3 on the machine, and we want to know the chip information. This tells us the information about our flash IC. So as you can see, we have a Macronix chip. Chip type is an MX25 L2 series, so L256 series even. It's a 32 meg IC, 32 meg ROM, with a sector size of 4096 bytes, a block size of 65,536 bytes, with 16 sectors per block, 512 blocks, and 8,192 sectors. Okay, seemingly Everything there is as we would completely be expecting. And of course, if we wanted to dump that now, we'd have to go ahead and we'd replace the info with dump, and then we give it a path. So C:/ / I think it's PS4, isn't it? Let's call this test nov17, not bin, I don't know. Nope. I don't think we have. Oh, there you go. No such file or directory. So this virtual machine is what we've used before. Oh, PS4 BIOS. Oh, I beg your pardon. PS4 BIOS. It's been a while since I've been on here, I'll admit. But there we go. So once we've actually start dumping there, you can see once we give it a valid path, of course, that it's quite happy, and it'll start to dump the contents of our PS4 ROM to the hard disk. And of course we've got to issue these commands, and again, once we've done that, when we come to rewrite it back, it's best practice we erase the chip and then we do something called a V-write, which is a write with verification to ensure that what we write back to our IC is indeed the repaired ROM as intended, because of course any sort of mistakes can prove pretty fatal to the PlayStation. So it's something to be very, very wary of. So this is all well and good, and it works perfectly well. But some people obviously don't really get along with command line or particularly understand it. And that's where Way Launchers comes in, and it's really quite a nice little utility. So let's go ahead and show you exactly what to do. So what we're going to do is we are going to go and download it from the web. So this is just a very, very basic virtual machine. I have next to nothing on here. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to Google. What the bloody hell's happened to that? Oh, it wants to sign in. Whatever. Anyway, right, so once you're at Google, what we're going to do is we are going to go and we're going to find something called Way-Launchers. If I can type properly, which seemingly I can't. It's Way Launchers. And Way Launchers, and it's a lovely little utility written by this guy here, Littlebalup. Fantastic little plug-in, this one. Again, you know, thanks to Judges for the original, and thanks to Littlebalup for the lovely little GUI interface he's provided with us. So what we're going to do is, essentially, if you go to Google, I do believe, if I remember right, that I wasn't paying attention there, which serves me right. It's the GitHub repository you want here, GitHub Littlebalup. Top result on Google. Go into there, lovely jubbly. So you'll see this little clone or download button here. You're going to want to go into there, download zip, and that will give you an option to download a little zip file. I'm going to go save as. I'm going to download it. Let's stick it in our downloads. That'll do. This is going to download everything that we are going to need. So as I say, this is following on from part 2 of our tutorial. So get complete part 2 if you're going to follow this, and then you're in a position to implement the Way Launchers installation. So we're just going to extract that Way Launchers zip file now. Okay, and then once that's done, it's created this little folder here, Way Launchers Master. We're going to go into there, and then of course we have this one, this set of folders here. So of course this is all the various bits and pieces, including the Git. So we're going to go into releases, and we get this little application file here. So we're just here. It's a little bit more complicated than just running it. So I'll show you what happens if you do just run it. The answer is you don't get a great deal. So if you just try running it, oh, you're joking, aren't you? Right, okay. Well, we'll let this install and we'll cut it here, and we'll come back. I could have sworn .NET 3.5 was installed on this machine. But anyway, you may very well see this. So if you do get a message there for .NET being missing, then just allow Windows to install it. As I say, we won't sit and wait for this to complete, because it could take a little while. So we'll chop it here and we'll come back once .NET is fully installed on this machine. Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, so .NET Framework is now installed in our machine here, and we're ready to go. Kind of. So I said I'd show you what would happen if you just tried to run the executable. And it doesn't actually work properly if you just try to run it straight out of the zip file. So in this particular instance, for some reason today, my Windows Defender went absolutely crazy when I tried to open this file about something called bitrep.b, but it's obviously a false positive because this particular program, it isn't a virus, trust me. You're absolutely fine. So if you do get anything like that, feel free to ignore it and stick an exclusion in for it. But either way, this is what it looks like. It's a lovely little interface. Obviously we're using SPIWay, so we're going to want to go to that across the top. And if you just try to run the executable straight from the zip file, you know, it's not going to work. So, you know, we try to get info, and you'll see here it does find the TNT, but it can't find SPIWay.py. It says the file is not found. So it's not quite as straightforward as just downloading it and running it. What we need to do is, as I say, if you follow part 2 of our tutorial series on how to set everything up for this, you know, if you follow on from there. So follow that, do what that part 2 tutorial says, and then all we do is we copy our way launchers 2.05.exe. We copy that into the file where our SPIWay installation lives, which is in this Norway master folder. So you can see here, look, you've got your SPIWay Python, Norway Python, and NANDWay Python. Those are for the older PS3s. The only one we're interested in is this SPIWay.py. So all we do is we copy the way launchers.executable into the directory where our SPIWay.py script lives. We're going to create a shortcut to the desktop just to make it nice and easy to use in future. There we go. So if we run that now, just going to get rid of that annoying security warning dialog box there. We're just going to allow it to run. And hopefully this time, yep, okay, so you can see the little GUI interface comes back up there. We're going to go over to our SPIWay tab again, and on the info tab here, so that's the same as giving the info command. Going to start, and this time hopefully you can see here, look, it's found our TNC, it's found the script, so it starts the script. This is the command it's issued, you see, it's the same one we manually issued earlier, and you can see it returns the same information about our chip type. So why is this thing quite nice then, and why do I like it quite as much as I do? Well, it's quite straightforward really. This thing does make our life a little bit easier. So rather than having to go into the command line and remember the commands and type them out every time, we don't have to do that. It's literally just a case of launching the little GUI interface there, heading over to the SPI tab, info, and basically you start from left to right. So of course, first of all, you're going to want to find your chip info, then you're going to want to dump. Once you've dumped it and you've done everything, we go to the right tab, we write it back. Of course, erase chips at the end there, because we really should be erasing before we write back, just as a bit of housekeeping. But so we've shown you there the info tab, and this is where it sort of comes into its own really, is on the dump tab. So remember, if you watch part 3 of the tutorial series that I've linked in the description, you'll see that what we do there is we manually issue to SPIWay a command twice. Sorry, no, we do it 3 times on the video. So we perform 3 separate dumps of the NAND, and the reason we do that is because, as you'll see later on in that part 3, is we'll compare in the hex editor the first dump to the second dump and the first dump to the third dump, and that confirms to us that all 3 dumps are indeed identical, because if just one bit in this thing is switched somewhere, it could be the difference between our PlayStation working and ending up in a looping blood, and you know, that's just hell. So we don't want that, obviously, so we need to make sure that we get one shot at this, because once we overwrite what's on that chip, there's no going back. We're not getting anything back. So if we've corrupted something or we've made a mess of something, unfortunately, you know, there's nothing in this world that's going to help you get it back. So we need to ensure that, you know, what we get off the chip is exactly what's on the chip to begin with, and therefore what we write back to the chip at the end of the process is exactly what we need to be writing back. And so what we do is we perform 3 separate dumps. We call it orig1, orig2, and orig3.bin. And then, as I say, we go into the hex editor and we manually compare 1 to 2 and 1 to 3. And all three come back identical, which tells us that, yes, you know, we've got an accurate representation, an accurate dump of what's on our chip, and we're free to proceed as required. Now, what Way Launchers actually allows us to do is it makes it a lot easier, because we don't have to sit there and manually fire the command. All we have to do is go to this dump tab, a number of dumps. So in our case we did 3, but you'd be perfectly within your right to do 2. 2 should be enough to confirm whether you've got a stable image from your original ROM. Save dump as, and this is another one, because as you could see earlier on when we tried to show you what happens with SPIWay when we have to manually issue commands, you saw that if we don't give SPIWay command line utility an existing folder on our PC somewhere, the thing falls over. It's not actually, unfortunately, clever enough to create that folder on the fly if it doesn't already exist. But of course with Way Launchers, because it's just a standard Windows interface dialog, when we go to actually tell it where to save, it gives us this standard file open dialog, which of course gives us the ability to pick a new folder. So because we have to literally pick a location to store this thing in, we can't possibly issue it a command where the folder structure doesn't exist to begin with. So we can never end up with that error, which, you know, again just takes out more of the complication. So, you know, let's call this way test nov17.bin. Okay, so we save that. You can see there that it's going to save the dump to C PS4 BIOS way test.bin. And this is the other nice thing, of course, because we can tick this little box down the bottom here that says enable binary comparison. And essentially what that does is, where on the video we, you know, in part 3 of our tutorial series, we go into HXD, which is the hex editor, and we compare dump 1 to dump 2 and dump 1 to dump 3. We don't have to do that anymore either, because now Way Launchers will also, you know, not only will it dump it the number of times we specify, whether it be 1, 3, 10, 20, whatever we want, it will then also do binary comparison to make sure that each one of those dumps is identical, and only then will it tell us that we have a valid image. So in our case we're going to do 2 dumps, we're going to enable that binary comparison, and we're going to hit start. And that's going to go away and dump, and as you can see there, rather nicely and usefully again, it says there, look, it tells us it's found our TNT on COM port 3. It shows us the command it's actually issued, so if we wanted to go into command line and actually do it ourselves, it's kind of educating us on what we need to be typing there. And as you can see, it's issued the command SPIWay.py on COM3 dump CPS4 BIOS way test nov17 _1.bin. We'll get an _2.bin at the end of this, and then it'll do a comparison, a byte for byte comparison. If both files check out and they match, it will tell us that we have a valid dump, and we can be very, very sure that what we've got on our PC is an accurate representation of what is currently on our PS4's NOR flash chip, which is absolutely fantastic and takes a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the hard labour out of it. The other nice thing, of course, is that if you watch part 3 of our tutorial video, when we actually come to issue the command to even get information from the chip, we need to issue SPIWay.py information about which COM port our TNC is on. Now, we don't necessarily know, so the way we do it is we go into Device Manager under Common LPT ports, and we can see there that we end up with a PS3 NOR flash, and it tells us what COM port that device is on. Again, Way Launchers takes that completely out of our remit. We don't have to worry about that. It looks automatically for which COM port our TNC is on, finds it, lists that COM port, and then it uses it automatically. We don't have to worry about what COM port, you know, our TNC board is actually picked up on. It just does it for us. Like I say, it takes a lot of the heavy lifting of this process out of it and just makes things so much easier. And as you can see, it's dumping away here. So we're still on the first dump. It does take a little while. That's nothing to do with the command line. It's nothing to do with SPIWay. It's just solely the fact that what we've got here is a serial to USB adapter device. Really, that's essentially what we turn our TNC into. So because it's dumping over a serial interface, it's fairly slow. It's nothing to do with SPIWay, and it's nothing to do with Way Launchers. It's just the way that things are. Fortunately, serial is rather naff and old, but you know, it's still very much used today. So what we'll do is we probably speed this a little bit up, I think, just to get to the end of the process a little bit quicker. Okay, so the first dump completed, and as you can see there, it says dump saved as, and it confirms our file name for us. And then automatically it starts on the second dump that it's going to perform. So it's going to dump the same ROM a second time, and then it's going to do the binary comparison for us to make sure that those two dumps are identical. So it tells us there it's also starting the second dump, shows us the command it's issued, and we can see below exactly what's going off, and we've done nearly 6 megabytes of the flash. Again, we'll speed this up to the end and we'll show you what happens once it's complete. Okay, and there we go, and we're finished. So you can see there, it confirms, just as it did the first time round, what we've saved the dump as, and then it tells us it's starting the binary comparison. It shows that it's going to compare dump 1 here to dump 2 here, and then it tells us underneath, look, dumps are identical, details in file compare _ log.txt, and press any key to exit, and that's it. So we know that our dumps are identical, and that's saved as a step. We don't no longer have to go and do that ourselves in HXD, because we've already informed via Way launchers that our dumps are identical, which is fantastic. Okay, so rather much as it said, it does also create a log file. So let's go and take a look at that now. So it sticks the log file for the comparison in the same folder we dumped our firmware to. So that's C, PS4 BIOS. We can see here we have our 2 bin files here, so way test November 17, 1 and 2. So these are the 2 dumps it performed. As we can see, they're both the perfect full 32 megs, 32,768 kilobytes. And this is the comparison file here, this compare.log. If we go into there, we can see it tells us the date and time the log files were compared. It tells us which files were compared, and the fact there, look, there's no differences were encountered. And that's it. So that's lovely. And again, the same thing for erasing and writing. It does the exact same thing. So rather than having to remember the erase chip command, all we do is make sure that our TNC board's plugged into our computer, fire up Way launchers, and we can hit start to erase the chip. As it says there, always make sure you've got a valid dump before you proceed, because as soon as you erase that chip, you've completely lost what's on there. And again, the write tab as well. And this is something else it does for us. So once we've repaired our firmware, you know, and everything else is good, so, you know, let's open that one there for example, a fixed one. We can do something called verify after write. So, of course, we can do that through SPIWay. We issue something called the VWrite command, and the VWrite command is something we cover in part 3 of our tutorial series, which is linked below. But again, you know, if we want to do that, then all we do is tick that box and hit start, and that's the same as doing VWrite. If we're not bothered about the comparison, and we just want to do the write command, it's a little bit quicker, but you're running the risk of, you know, perhaps whatever's on that chip, you know, may not be on your ROM, and again, you know, you deal with consequences of doing that. For the sake of, you know, a couple of seconds extra that's going to take you, always tick that verify after write box, because that guarantees you that what's in your fixed firmware file, what's in that fixed firmware bin at the end of the process, once we've done everything we need to do in HXD, that guarantees that what's in that file is exactly what's on that chip at the end of the process. And let's face it, you know, we want this thing to work at the end. We don't want to be chancing it and scratching our head and introducing variables when we did it right properly. We've too much going on without worrying about that. So always make sure you tick that verify after write box. And that's that, right? Basically, ladies and gentlemen. It's only a little utility, you know, and it's a GUI interface on top of Judge's already fantastic work. But many thanks to Littlebalup for that as well, because as you can see, you know, it does have a couple of little bells and whistles in there which just enhance the work that was already done by Judges. And, you know, again, just goes to make our life a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, you know, and just takes out some of the work and some of the work, you know, some of those extra steps that we have to compare. And, you know, it just means we can get straight on with what we need to do. Speeds the process up, and that's a win-win situation for me and for you, and of course all you guys out there that are doing this for a living. So if you've never heard of Way launchers, then I do heavily suggest you go and try it out. you know, and give it a go and see what you think. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention, just in case you weren't aware of it. Chances are that some of you guys who do this for a living probably will be, but for Joe Blogs out there who's fighting with the SPIWay command utility and maybe doesn't understand command line too well, this thing just makes the whole lot a lot easier, and that's really why I wanted to sort of bring it to your attention, just in case you weren't aware. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. As always, any questions or comments, I'm happy to have them below. Please feel free to hit me up down there. I'm always around. I'm on holiday next week from the 12th of November. I'm away until, well, I'm away all week, but I'm still picking up emails and things like that. So if you do need to get hold of me for any sort of repairs and things, I do of course offer repairs out to the public if you're in the UK or the EU. Unfortunately, US machines these days are a little bit too expensive on the postage to make it worthwhile, but UK and EU users, feel free to send your stuff across to me. Feel free to hit me up if there's anything you need. So feel free to send me a private message on here. On Twitter, I'm on Twitter at YTAndrewPaul. DM box is open to everybody there. Likewise, my email address, if you've any business enquiries at all, feel free to hit me up there. Email address is in the description, but just in case you don't see it down there, it's YTAndrewPaul at outlook.com. That's my business email address. Feel free to hit me up there. I prefer no questions to that email address, guys, purely because, you know, trying to filter through several hundred questions and things like that on top of my business email can get a little bit awkward. So any questions or anything like that, please, you know, retain those through either YouTube or Twitter. You know, like I say, any business enquiries or, you know, any enquiries from any of you out there who are looking for a repair, feel free to hit me up on that outlook.com email address. I'll be picking it up. I'll still pick things up next week. But yes, thank you very much for watching in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Andy Paul, you've been fantastic. This has been Way Launchers. As I said before, many thanks to Judges for the original SPIWay stuff. Many thanks to Littlebalup for the Way Launchers command line, GUI even. Bloody hell, command line utility, what am I on about? Yeah, thank you very much to Littlebalup for the Way Launchers GUI and the extra work he's put in there just to put that little bit of spit and polish on the already fantastic work from Judges. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this has been useful. As always, guys, if you've anything you want to know in extra, just pop those comments below and I'll try and get back to you. So thank you for watching. Please remember to comment, rate and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Well, it won't be next week, but maybe the week after. So I've been Andy Paul, you've been fantastic, and I will see you on the next one. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate, and of course subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there, and there's lots more to come.